the man, the myth, the legend in his house in the fucking Pierce School right now. This shit's the most outrageous physical place I've ever seen. Beautiful art, decor, and vibes.
I'm glad you got to see it. It's another one of my babies that I've been working on a long time.
Well made, very, very well made. Trinkets everywhere, hidden rooms, all the best shit. And you know, you gave me the utmost compliment recently, and I very much so appreciate it. And on being, you know, you've had a lot of mentees. Every single one of your mentees, besides,
You got great style.
has gone on and done amazing things. Obviously, you're just full of so much.
Well, you also at a young age are operating with a more of a divine sense of purpose. Generally, that's something that most people step into at a later age, because normally capitalism or entrepreneurialism or the pursuit of these things are normally driven by more selfish tendencies. Not that they have to be, and it's always a mix, right?
Yeah.
But you operate with a greater sense of purpose and understand that these things are, you know, how the game is played.
Yeah, and I made a video about this where I said perfect selfishness is perfect selflessness, because that's the only eternal currency. It's good karma. It's just better gameplay on when you play the infinite game. There's some context. I think it's because I've always thought about how AI is taking the world exponential. You know, I like to say it's not a pedestal. Everyone should play this way. You know, this is just a better way to play. More fun, more fulfilling, more wholesome, like all in all.
But generally,
aligned.
Younger people, you know, that came from my generation, there was a lot less of that.
Yeah.
And those that were operating from that place usually found themselves working in the areas where they're less likely to have impact. Building and creating businesses is one of the ways to make the biggest impact.
Yep.
Right? It's not typically through your NGOs, even though they've got
And you came up with
good intentions.
terms around this, venture philanthropist or conscious capitalism.
Been trying to, you know, how do we do that, right?
Connect the two sides. And I like that what you said, because that's the meat and potatoes of really what I wanted to mention here was, I think your prior mentee's greatest failure has been going above and beyond you and diverging from the path of kind of working directly with you, because I mean, maybe that is because I have the sense of we both want to go to the same place with it, which is the beautiful place in the future that we can make happen through all of our actions and shifting and really just accelerating that thing. I mean, I really think of it as we're going to get there one way or another. It's can happen through us or for us, and it's better
or without us.
Better.
Future's going to happen with or without you.
We're throwing the world is throwing an amazing party in the future, and you might as well be a part of the planning committee. You know, like that's the way to think about it. And in terms of having that, I like this term. I think I do have some of the most spiritually sound ideas, which is forcibly saying SpearRitual there. I think any single person who truly maxes out their spirituality goes towards maximizing influence and changing the world. It's like enlightenment's already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. So it's more so, how do you go and affect and change the systems and bring people's attention towards those things, coordinate people? Like, have you heard of Moloch?
Yes.
It's like rationalist Satan, basically. Like, people who don't believe in God view Moloch as this Canaanite deity who is the god of our lack of coordination. It's like everyone wants the good place, everyone wants the good things to happen. It's more like, hey, there's different incentives, right? And I do see that as it's an underlying shift that is happening. I see a lot of people recognizing what matters more as matter becomes worth less, or we start to even be able to predict who the robots coming, and then there's abundance, and then it's like, okay, we have a techno-capital machine which has started to break down itself. And now the recalibration is actually getting more funded, more valued. There's different mechanisms, like I think meme tokens is one way to go about that. Like the philosopher today who gives a ton of value to the world can finally, hey, create your philosophy token, and what is a token but a shared belief system? So I don't think it's been used that way yet. I think we're still in the degen stage, and we'll push more towards the regen stage as people see which coins and communities have the strongest essence over time. And lots of ideas that we've all already been talking about and sharing. And you know, the ultimate piece of the aspect of the future that I really see is leading this SpearRitual. Like, what does that look like to actually go be the tip of the spear. And I think it's the top V strategy we've been talking about. I mean, the fact that the Phidias guy, which we talked about his strategy to become day one of meeting Elon Musk by staying outside Twitter, then became the largest voted independent candidate in history. I mean, that's quite the synchronicity when we didn't know that he was running at all while we were planning that.
Well, I mean, learning how to galvanize community.
Right.
Right? How to build following.
Right.
There's not that big a difference between that function and building a voter base or constituents of voters that would elect you into office.
That's what
the difference is. He figured out how to do it with greater organic, intelligent social engineering versus throwing dollars at
work through the people,
buying ads.
Work through the hive mind.
Learn how to navigate the algorithms, the systems, but also how to create engagement and interest.
And so I sat here with Deepak for a couple hours, which I think you've known Deepak for a while.
Yeah,
you,
I love him.
You see that he's got this talent, right? He's not big enough for what he is. He's still so underhanded based on the value and his capabilities.
Well, I mean, you should know by now that normally those that have a very positive message to bring have a very hard time delivering it at scale.
Right, 100%.
Depending upon what type of energy and message you're bringing forth, it's much harder. The more positive and inspirational it is, and the more...
Right, we have an engagement algorithm, not an empowerment algorithm. So right now it's shake your ass and then you're going to get more views than some of the beauty, but...
Are we going to twerk?
We got to keep them engaged! So that's my plan, is that we start a twerking campaign for Uranus,
Hey, twerking changed like a whole generation.
By the way, Uranus has been getting pumped.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of liquidity getting injected recently. The conjunction is coming.
The astrological charts don't lie.
So I pilled Deepak on the top V method for him, which, day one of remixing Ariana Grande's song, just cover with the high vibe nature that he does until I sing with her. And he already has the connections to the people to go do that and make that happen. And I really see that as the amount of power music has in terms of just hitting people's soul. He has never even tried to go organically viral. Like, I looked at his socials and stuff, he doesn't know what he's doing there at all. And so that alone, if he just went and tried to go viral, he would go viral. But of course, adding it to this movement piece, I activated that, I forget his name, the guy who came and that you let stay at the house. We just went to Puerto Rico after Nashville. Young guy, also very smart. He's had already thought about one of my ideas, which was to lock himself in a warehouse for a year. It's funny that that's also a meme now, locked in. It could be the locked in warehouse. And so I'm talking to more and more people about just this movement strategy. And it feels like there's a forming happening, and it feels like if we kind of just plan a little bit of strategy around bringing those people together, doing it together in a big way, this can truly be the tip of the spear. Because it's once one account does decently well. Oh, the other one is Romeo Lacoste, one of the biggest tattoo artists in the world. He's got a new Hulu TV show coming up as well, and he's already tatted like Justin Bieber and all these people, so he's gonna run that strategy. And the big flag post for him is tattooing Mark Zuckerberg, which is gonna happen. Mark wants to be the Gen Z sort of relationship person. So I can peer into the future a little bit and see that these things are gonna work. I've seen more people start to do this strategy on social. And it's, okay, once you have 10 million people following a movement, that's what Phidias did. But again, as we've talked about, it died. No one's ever just chained it up. No one's ever just created an ecosystem of those top Vs with bigger and bigger goals. To really think about the big strategies. And I mean, the people here during this Future of Humanity Summit and after that congregate around you are all just so high vibrational that it's ridiculous. I'm like, oh, this is such a gift to have these conversations. And people already have thought about a lot of what I felt like were the deep esoteric ideas to me, like implementing, the light DAO guy, liquid democracy, to a voting platform and those sorts of large scale fixes, right? What should the independent campaign be? It should be electing a figurehead who says, I'm going to decentralize my vote based on a platform. And there's mechanics there that need to be discussed and thought through thoroughly.
Yeah, it gets much more complicated than that. There's certain knowledge that people have that others don't and can't be shared. There's some issues with liquid democracy, but there's no question plenty of room for improvement.
Yeah. Would a supermajority fix it? Like if you say 75% of people must agree?
So, unfortunately, you're never going to be able to get.
I mean, basically,
I don't want to say never,
yeah.
but getting people to consistently show up and vote is very difficult. 10% of Americans show up for their local election.
Phidias had the highest voter turnout in history.
I'm just saying, it's hard to get people to show up and vote. That's to get them to do it once.
Yep.
To then be able to do that issue by issue by issue. Representative democracy or proxies, you need specialists that have dedicated their time to thinking through the issues thoroughly.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want mob rule, where one of the issues you get with liquid democracy is that it's mob rule and that the media effectively then runs everything. It's because you're triggering people with emotional responses to get them to feel a certain way and act a certain way versus the good judgment of clear-headedness and sometimes processing all the facts and data to know what the right thing to do is, which is why we have a representative democracy. You're supposed to pick those people that you think are going to represent you well. But there's also, in a call it liquid democracy type of environment, there's also call it proxying, which is effectively the same thing. I'm just proxying my vote to this person.
Yeah.
And I can change that
who I trust the most
in a more real
for
time.
each different category even of policy.
Yeah, so there are lots of ways to improve, but most of the time when people just start thinking about liquid democracy, they don't think through the challenges that will ultimately create.
I think the correct thing is you create the liquid democracy, which at least petitions and votes and says, here's what by the people, for the people, is propagating as the most important kind of next fixes, steps, etc. And then there's a representative in place who at least then is saying, well, here's the reason we're not doing that.
There's a far better way to be representatives interacting with constituents. We have social media.
Yeah.
Our representatives should be using modern systems of communication to keep their constituents better informed.
Yep.
Right? It's not so much in giving the people say over every little thing that happens. They're not going to be informed enough to be able to do that effectively. But how do we create greater transparency? How do we create better communication? And these are obviously the lowest, sort of hanging fruits to improve things. And that's where young politicians can, agree to a whole new set of rules. It's like, download my app. When I was looking at running for Senate, I Rock the Vote app, and every single thing was going to be there. And I would be polling every single one of my constituents for their thoughts on every single bill.
Right.
Well, that doesn't mean, and it's clearly disclosed, I may have to vote differently.
Right.
For reasons that I may not even be able to tell you.
It's like the Electoral College. There's a sort of a veto layer.
But the idea is, how do we create greater civic engagement?
Yeah.
How do we create greater civic participation? And it starts with the relationship.
Yeah.
And how do you create a better relationship with your constituents where you're ultimately instilling and creating greater trust?
Yeah.
But participation. Because the best thing that can happen is an entire society being active participants in the choosing of their elected officials, those that effectively govern over us when it's meant to be just up for and by us. But the way you fix that is with greater participation. When people get involved and have an opinion, maybe not about every policy and every issue, but at least in the people. And all things being equal, a person that is committed to transparency and communication is a good starting point. Get out of your ivory tower.
Yep.
and utilize the tools that exist to
right. Like what would the founding fathers have done had they had the internet when setting up?
And I've given those speeches. My speeches have been.
You said that.
What would the founding fathers do if they if they were here today with all the tools that we have at our disposal? I called it Gov 3.
Nice. Well played.
Well, Gov 1 was the original intention based upon the times.
Yep.
Gov 2, system captured.
Yep.
Gov 3 is its liberation and power back to the people. But the real rubber meets the road, and how you do these things are not so simple, right? They're not just macro ideas, because there's the practical realities, the devil's in the details.
Right.
And so the details matter. You have to get everything right.
Right. And I think that's what I am tracking in influence space, I think that the first large influencer on the internet was the Dan Bilzerian. That was like the first Instagram really big person. Super just, there's the Spiral Dynamics book, which talks about the stages of consciousness evolution. Have you read it?
Yeah, I mean,
It's beautiful, and to me it's a light pill, not even a white pill, but a light pill, something that like when you understand how this evolution is evolving, it like lightens you. It makes you see how things are evolving and how the systems are changing for better. And so the first one we had that was, base of the spiral was Dan Bilzerian. And then we had Top G, which was more of the orange category, fitting for your outfit right now, which is the ultimate success, just like showing wealth. And we're entering the era of what does the next version look like? We've talked about this, the top V, what does it look like to be top 5? And if you are top 5s, your vibration that you're setting out is ultimately a search for what is the greatest narrative for the world. If you want to be the tip of the spear, if you want to do a spear ritual of sorts, what should you be representing and what sort of values come with it? And that is why I've been thinking, of course, about what does this become? What sort of the coordination effects I'm ultimately bringing together and the people I'm activating to take this on and synchronizing is that it does become political. It has the potential to become political. And how do you take that and be responsible with it? And how do we implement a lot of the things that you've talked about and have your knowledge be involved? And, I just wanted to share all this with you and say, one, I'm extremely grateful for past year, the last Burning Man. Of course, we met for 5 minutes. It wasn't even the really real meeting, but the second meeting story is much better, and you've said it many times. And now I just feel like so many things are coming together in a beautiful way. And I think what I said earlier is like you've had a lot of mentees who have gone on and done their thing. And what I truly want to make sure I always do, I'm not bigger than you. I'm not ever thinking that I can do better without you by my side, and that to me is like, how can you see me, and that's what's beautiful. You truly, a lot of people don't understand me, and I have been misunderstood in the past in terms of where I'm going and how I'm operating and what things I'm representing. And the most beautiful part about our relationship is that I've truly felt seen. I've felt like you see the light in me, you help bring out the light in me. And to me, the final piece that I want to help you see is just how big this sort of SpearRitual top V strategy coming together can be. And
I understood it from the beginning.
And I think we should lean into it, basically.
I agree, and it's, I think that the way...
I want you, again, to do it. We set up a little bit of the plan before, and then some things happened. It wasn't the right time, but I can't see this truly forming and coming together in the best way possible without your top V energy being
Well, let's
a part of
discuss
it.
and grab dinner.